My name is Danielle Whitmore. I'm 32. And yesterday, my mother set fire to a check that could have changed my entire life. Not because I owed her money. Not because I made a mistake. But because I wouldn't leave the man I love. The flames didn't scare me. But the silence on my father's face? That's what burned. Before I tell you what I did next, drop a comment if you've ever been forced to choose between love and approval. And hit that subscribe button if your family's version of what's best for you always came with strings attached. What happened after the fire wasn't even the worst part. It was what came before the years of pretending their version of love was enough. Let me take you back so you can understand why that fire wasn't the start of the damage. It was just the proof. I didn't scream when I saw the fire. I didn't lunge, didn't flinch. I just stood there, keys still dangling from my hand, watching my mother, crouched beside my living room trash can, holding a lighter like she was cleansing evil spirits instead of incinerating a $2.5 million lottery check. Beside her, my dad stood stiff and silent, like he always did when she did something outrageous. His hands were clasped behind his back like he was a preacher delivering judgment. "If you won't come to your senses," my mom said, "then you don't deserve a single penny." The paper curled black at the edges, the fire climbing like it had a purpose. But I couldn't take my eyes off my bracelet, the one Andre's daughter made me out of cheap leather and wooden beads. It rested right there on my wrist, warm against my skin, like it was reminding me I still had something real. And then I laughed. I didn't mean to. It started small, a hiccup of disbelief, and then it grew. My mom flinched. My dad blinked. The fire hissed louder than both of them. "You think that's the real check?" I said, wiping a tear from the corner of my eye, not sure if it was from laughter or heartbreak. My mom turned to look at the ashes like maybe they'd rearrange themselves into a dollar sign. "That's just a photo prop," I added, voice flat now. "The actual funds are handled electronically. You didn't destroy anything but a souvenir." For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Then her face changed from righteous to rattled. And finally, to something else. Shame? Number. Just anger dressed up as regret. "We were just trying to talk to you," she said, voice rising. "You won't answer our calls. You've shut us out." "You broke into my apartment," I replied, "and tried to destroy what you thought was my future." My dad stepped forward then, posture rigid. "We did what we had to. That man, he's not family. He's a liability. His name is Andre," I said. "He works harder than both of you combined. And he's the only person in my life who doesn't ask me to shrink." The bracelet caught the light. I turned my wrist just enough so they could see it. "She made this for me," I said. "His daughter. But I bet you never bothered to ask her name." Their silence was louder than the fire had been. I walked past them, calm now, and cracked a window. Smoke was settling in like guilt. "Leave," I said, "before I call the police." "Abo, you don't mean that," my mother replied, voice trembling like she wanted to cry but didn't quite remember how. "We're your family." "No," I said. "You're people who only show up when I have something to offer." I held the door open. My hand didn't shake. One by one, they walked out. My father didn't look at me. My mother turned at the last second and muttered, "You're choosing wrong." When the door clicked shut, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I just locked it, turned the deadbolt, and leaned my head against the cool wood. They hadn't ruined anything. The real money was safe. The real damage had already been done years ago. I sat down on the couch and stared at the empty trash can. All those years I tried to make them proud. All those years I thought maybe if I just achieved enough, earned enough, behaved enough, they'd finally see me. Instead, they tried to set my future on fire because I loved someone they didn't choose. The bracelet was still on my wrist. I tightened it one notch and whispered to the quiet room. They thought they burned my luck. But all they did was light the match. The smell of antiseptic always hit me first. Not in a sharp, jarring way, but like a dull reminder that this place didn't belong to me, no matter how many hours I gave it. Third floor. Night shift. Senior care. I clocked in at 6:42 p.m., already behind, already aching from the runaround of another half-day I'd spent filling out paperwork at the lottery office, signing, nodding, not fully believing. Back in the real world, one of the residents had already soiled his bed, another was refusing meds, and someone had unplugged the mini fridge in the staff room again. The light buzzed overhead with that half-dead flicker, and the coffee machine blinked a steady red, clean me. Like it was judging us. I tied my hair back, adjusted my scrubs, and told myself to make it through one more night. The thing about this job is, you can't fake presence. These people may forget names, but they never forget when you show up tired or hollow. And lately, I'd been both. "Hey, Miss Danny." Mr. Sheffield called from room 312, waving his good arm. "That soap opera of yours came on already. You're late." I smiled and leaned in. "That's our show, sir. And you always peek at the spoilers." He grinned and patted the worn blanket draped over his legs, the one with a hole where his wife's initials used to be stitched. He didn't remember her name anymore, but he still waited for her every morning. Grief doesn't leave, it just folds itself into new routines. Around 9 p.m., the floor settled a bit. I stood by the window at the end of the hall, sipping from a cracked styrofoam cup of instant coffee. It tasted like cardboard and burnout. Below, the parking lot was half empty. A few cars left behind by the day's shift, including my blue Corolla with a cracked bumper and overdue tags. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the scratch ticket, the one that changed everything. I'd bought it 3 days ago on a whim. One Powerball. One set of numbers. No plan. Now, $2.5 million was sitting in a state-managed holding account waiting for transfer. It didn't feel real. Not yet. I ran my thumb across the back of the ticket stub. Just a printed reminder of lightning in a bottle. And I hadn't told Andre. Not because I didn't trust him, but because, for the first time in my life, something big had happened to me and I didn't know what to do with it. My mother's voice, sharp and smug, rang in the back of my head. "Money changes people, Danielle. Especially men like him." She never said former inmate out loud. She didn't have to. Her tone did all the heavy lifting. The bracelet on my wrist rubbed softly against my skin. Handmade beads. Tiny letters spelling DANI. Andre's daughter gave it to me on a Wednesday. Just handed it over like it was nothing. But it wasn't. I'd taken care of her when Andre had pneumonia and couldn't pick her up from school. I made peanut butter sandwiches while she colored on the kitchen floor. I taught her how to braid her own hair. I wasn't her mom, but sometimes she looked at me like maybe I could be. I closed my hand around the bracelet. Andre deserved to know. Not just because he was my partner, but because after everything we were building a life together. One slow brick at a time. Still, my stomach knotted thinking about it. What if this money did change everything? What if the quiet balance we'd built, me working late shifts, him fixing HVAC systems across town, us swapping sleepy texts and sharing grocery lists, what if it tipped? And underneath all that fear was a flicker of guilt. Because part of me didn't want to tell my family at all. Not ever. Not after years of being reminded I wasn't enough. Not after decades of watching my mother fawn over my sister's hair, my cousin's choir solos, and every single person who wasn't me. They'd pretend to be happy for me. Then they'd start asking. And asking. And shaming. I sighed and tucked the ticket back in my pocket. The hallway was silent except for the low hum of the vending machine down the hall. I leaned against the wall, eyes burning from too little sleep and too many what-ifs. One step at a time. That's what Andre always said when life got loud. So, that night, I made a decision. I'd tell him first. Before anyone else. Because if there was one person who'd look at me and see me know the dollar signs, it was him. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew I wasn't going to walk this alone. I pulled out my phone and tapped a message. Simple. Just 6 words. "Can we talk tomorrow night?" I stared at it for a moment, then hit send. As I slipped the phone back into my pocket, I whispered to myself, "Don't look back." Andre always said he could tell when something was weighing on me by the way I stirred my coffee. I never believed him. But that night, I watched his eyes track the spoon like it was a clock counting down. We were at his place's mall rental on the edge of Decatur, the kind of place where the heater clicks on a few seconds too late and the walls hold secrets from previous tenants. His daughter's drawings were taped crookedly to the fridge, a house with a red roof, a stick figure with curly hair labeled ME in big letters. I didn't sit right away. Just stood there, hands in the pockets of my jacket, heart doing something between a sprint and a stall. "You okay?" he asked, setting his phone down on the arm of the couch. His voice was always soft at first, like an invitation instead of a demand. "I did something," I said. Kind of accidentally. But also not. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. Just leaned forward, elbows on his knees, waiting. I pulled the lottery ticket from my wallet, the same way someone might pull a bandage they're not sure they're ready to change. It was folded twice and tucked behind an expired Walgreens coupon. I handed it over. Andre didn't laugh. Didn't flinch. Just took it, read it, then looked up at me with steady eyes. "Tell me," he said. So I did. About the gas station, the impulse buy, the numbers matching one by one on the screen while I sat on the couch eating leftover chili. About the visit to the lottery office, the financial advisor's card still in my glove box, the surreal silence after they told me I'd won $2.5 million. When I finished, he sat back slowly, laid the ticket on the coffee table, then rubbed both hands over his face, like he was waking up from something. That's a lot," he said finally. "I mean, that's life-changing." "I know. But you don't sound happy." There it was. The part I hadn't said out loud yet. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Of what it'll change. Of who it'll bring out." He nodded. Then stood and walked over to a shelf above the heater. Came back with a beat-up postcard, edges curled, ink slightly faded. It was a photo of Zion National Park. Deep red canyons. Endless sky. "This," he said, handing it to me, "is what I kept in my cell." Osai. I looked up at him, confused. When I got locked up, this guy in the bunk above mine's brother had hiked Zion years ago. Left a postcard in a care package. I looked at that thing every day. Told myself when I got out, that's where I'd go. I turned the card over. On the back, in scratchy blue pen, it read, "Breathe here one day, you're worth it." Andre smiled a little. "I've never been. Life got busy. But when I met you, I started thinking about it again. Our claw." My eyes blurred a little, but I didn't let it spill. "Not yet. I didn't tell you to ask for anything," I said. "I just needed to tell someone who'd see me before they saw the money." "I see you, Danny. That's simple, that's steady." I sat down next to him, still holding the postcard. It felt like a promise I hadn't realized I needed. "But there's more," he added, carefully. "You know my past, and you know your family doesn't exactly approve." A beat passed between us. Long enough for the truth to settle in. "They'll say I'm using you," he said. "That I'm dangerous. That I've got nothing to offer." He wasn't wrong. "They already do," I admitted. His jaw tightened. Not angry, just bracing. "I'm not going to fight them for you," he said gently. "But I'll stand with you if you choose to fight." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Then we stand," I said. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of quiet that doesn't itch or press. His hand found mine, warm and calloused. The bracelet on my wrist nudged against the edge of the postcard. Both reminders. One of what I had. One of where I was headed. Later, as I stood by the door to leave, he leaned against the frame and gave me that slow, sideways smile. "Guess we should learn how to hike," he said. I laughed softly. "Guess we should." As I stepped outside, the cold hit fast. But for once, I didn't flinch. The wind smelled like old leaves and something new. Possibility, maybe. In my pocket, the postcard was folded gently, tucked beside the ticket. Two kinds of hope. One bought by chance, the other earned. And somehow, both felt real. The smell of baked ziti hit me before I even opened the door. Heavy. Tangy. Over-seasoned, like my mother always did when she wanted to distract from something else. I stepped inside and slipped off my shoes, already bracing myself. The entryway hadn't changed since high school, same faded welcome mat, same crooked framed print of, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The house was warm, but not in a comforting way. More like the kind of warmth that made you sweat under a fake smile. "Danielle," my mom called from the kitchen, voice syrupy sweet. "Come help me with the rolls." I hung my coat, took a breath, and walked in. She looked up from the oven, apron tied tight at her waist, lipstick too red for a Sunday night. "You look tired," she said, eyes scanning me from head to toe. "I just came off a 12-hour shift," I said flatly, reaching for the tray. "Well, no wonder. You've always worked yourself too hard. If you'd let someone take care of you for once." I didn't answer. Just set the rolls on the stovetop and turned to face the dining room. The table was already set, too many forks, the nice napkins folded like church fans. A potluck for 4 people. It was always like this when my mom was trying to impress someone. "Your sister's on her way," she added. "Said traffic on Route 51 is awful." Of course. Brooke was never on time. But there was always an excuse, and it was always accepted. I walked into the living room, where my dad was watching some fishing show with the volume too low to matter. "Hey, Dad." He nodded, didn't look up. You off tonight?" "Yeah." Silence. This was our rhythm, barely there, always polite. He wasn't cruel. He just evaporated whenever things got emotional. Back in the kitchen, my mom pulled a casserole from the oven with dramatic flair. "I made that corn pudding you like," she said. "Thanks. I figured you'd need the comfort, with everything going on." I froze. My eyes locked on her. I haven't said anything yet. Her face twitched, but only for a second. "Oh, well," she said lightly. "Your sister mentioned you had something big to share tonight. We're just excited for you, whatever it is." That's how she did it, wrapped manipulation in ribbons of cheer. "Right," I said. "I'll wait for everyone to sit." Oh. The doorbell rang and in came Brooke, hair flawless, heels loud. She hugged my mom, barely nodded at me, and launched into a story about a flat tire that somehow involved a smoothie and a stranger with a pit bull. Dinner started. We said grace. My mom's voice got louder at the words, "May we be grateful for all blessings and keep this family strong and united." Forks clinked. I took 2 bites of salad and pushed my plate. "I have some news." All heads turned. I won the lottery. I. For a second, nothing moved. Then Brooke gasped. "Wait, what? Like, seriously?" My mom blinked. "How much?" I looked her dead in the eye. 2.5 million. Brooke let out a high-pitched laugh. "Oh my God, Danny, that's insane." My mom placed her fork down. Perfectly. Folded her napkin. "Well," she said slowly, "that certainly explains the secrecy. I wasn't hiding it." "No? You didn't think your family might want to know before your boyfriend did?" And there it was. My dad cleared his throat but didn't speak. Brooke looked between us, caught the shift. "I didn't tell Andre for money," I said. "I told him because I trust him." My mom shook her head. "Danielle, you can't be serious." "About what?" "You know exactly what I mean. He's troubled. He's not part of this family. He's part of my life." Brooke leaned in, trying to soften it. "Look, all we're saying is, be smart. You've worked too hard to let this slip away." I know exactly what I've worked for," I said, voice tight. "And I'm not asking anyone to approve." "You're being naive," my mom snapped. "That kind of money attracts the wrong people." "Like who?" "You?" Her mouth fell open. The bracelet on my wrist caught on the edge of my sleeve. I adjusted it slowly, deliberately. This isn't about money, I added. It's about control. My mom stood. You're twisting everything. We just want what's best for you. No, I said. You want what fits your picture of me. And Andre doesn't. My dad finally looked up, voice rough. Let's not do this at the table. But we already had. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loud against the tile. I came here out of respect. That's more than I've ever gotten in return. I grabbed my coat and didn't wait for a reply. As I reached the door, my mom called out, voice breaking just enough to sting. Don't say I didn't warn you. I paused, hand on the knob. I'd rather fail with someone who sees me than win with people who don't. Then I walked out, into the cold, into the dark, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of rain tapping on the bedroom window like a slow warning. Andre was still asleep beside me, one arm flung over his eyes, the other resting just close enough to feel safe but not smothering. I watched his chest rise and fall for a minute before I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. The envelope was still in my bag. I'd checked 3 times during the night just to be sure. Still there. Still folded perfectly. Still unreal. By 9 a.m., I was parked outside First Western Bank, the kind with brass handles and 2 clean tile floors that made you feel poor just by walking in. I didn't want to be seen, but this town had a way of making sure you always were. The teller, a woman named Jody with frosted tips and a Bible verse tattooed just barely peeking from her sleeve, smiled too hard. Can I help you? Yeah, I need to open a safety deposit box. She blinked. We don't get that request often. Just you today? I nodded. Just me. She handed me paperwork, eyes flicking to the address line. I filled it out without thinking, then hesitated before adding my emergency contact. I left it blank. A quiet switch flicked in my chest. I was alone in this. Once everything was signed, Jody led me past the glass offices and into a narrow hallway that smelled like dust and old air. This way. We'll assign you a key and a number. Keep this safe. You'll need it every time. We stopped in front of a steel drawer, box 174. It didn't look like much. But inside, I laid the envelope flat like it was sacred. And for a second, it was. But as I closed the box and locked it with a heavy clunk, the anxiety didn't lift. It just settled differently. Outside, the rain had picked up. I drove home in silence, windshield wipers slicing through my thoughts like a metronome. Back in the apartment, Andre was making coffee, still shirtless, with a sleepy smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. You okay? He asked. I set my bag down, heart still racing from nothing and everything. Yeah, just did what we talked about. He nodded. You feel better? I don't know, maybe safer. He poured a second mug, handed it to me. You don't have to carry all this alone. I'm not, I said. But the lie hung between us like steam. We sat on the couch, the soft hum of the radiator filling the silence. I thought about telling him I'd left the emergency contact line blank. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I reached for the stack of mail on the counter. Mostly junk. A couple of bills. And one cream-colored envelope with no return address. Inside was a postcard. It was a picture of the Grand Canyon, bright, loud, almost garish. But the handwriting on the back froze me. Money doesn't protect you from mistakes. Be careful who you trust. Mom. No greeting. No sign-off. Just that sentence. I stared at it, my thumb grazing the ridged edge of the cardstock. It was postmarked 2 days ago. Before the dinner. Before I told them anything. My stomach twisted. I hadn't told her about the safety deposit box. Hadn't told her anything at all. But, somehow, she always got there first. Andre leaned over, reading it, his jaw tightening. You think she knew before you said it? I nodded slowly. I think she's always known more than she should. She following you? I don't know. Maybe. He rubbed his face, then stood. I can talk to someone. Maybe get a camera put up outside. No, I said quickly. Not yet, I need to breathe. I need to think. He didn't push, just nodded and stepped away, giving me space I didn't know I needed. I looked at the postcard again and tucked it into the back of my journal. Not the trash. Not the drawer. The journal. Because part of me knew this wasn't over. This was only the start of something darker. And the worst part? She hadn't even raised her voice. She didn't need to. She knew exactly how to get under my skin without ever being seen. I sat there, fingers curled tight around the mug, the warmth long gone, and tried to figure out when keeping my winnings safe had started to feel more like burying a secret. And how long I'd have before she tried to dig it back up. It started with 3 knocks. Not pounding. Not urgent. Just 3 even taps that didn't belong to a neighbor or a delivery driver. Andre looked up from the couch, where he'd been sketching ideas for a mural at the center. I froze by the sink, my hands still wet from rinsing coffee cups. We both went still. Expecting someone? He asked, softly. I shook my head. And just like that, the comfort of the morning cracked wide open. I dried my hands on the dish towel, heart already racing. The knocking didn't come again. Whoever it was, they knew I heard it. They were waiting. Understood too. I'll get it. Number. I stepped ahead of him, something old and tight coiling in my stomach. I opened the door. It wasn't her. But, somehow, it was worse. Standing there was Lisa Mercer, my cousin. Technically, we hadn't spoken in nearly 3 years. She smiled like this wasn't a violation. Like she hadn't ghosted me the moment Mom started calling me difficult. Danny. Hey, she said, glancing past me like she owned the right. I didn't move. What are you doing here? Lisa shrugged. Your mom's worried about you. She said you've been off. And then I saw your name on the intake at First Western. You opened a box? The air thinned. How did you? I temp there sometimes. Front desk, Jody mentioned it in passing. I just thought maybe it'd be good if we talked. My body turned cold. Jody. The frosted tip bank teller. Her smile. Her pause at the address. I stepped out and closed the door behind me, gently but firmly. Andre was still inside. I didn't want him hearing this. Not like this. Lisa's expression shifted. She just wants you safe. By having you follow me? I didn't follow you. I drove by, that's all. I just figured I'd check in. No, Lisa, you don't get to pretend to care now. Not when the only time I hear from you is when Mom pulls your strings. She flinched. Good. I'm not doing this, I said, turning to go back inside. Danny, wait, she's not well, okay? She's scared. You should call her before this gets worse. I paused. Worse? Lisa hesitated. She's talking about contesting something legally. She's saying you're unstable. That maybe the winnings shouldn't be in your name. My mouth went dry. She can't, I said, but the words were shaky. She doesn't have that power. I'm just telling you what she's saying. I nodded once. Thanks for the warning. Then I walked back in and shut the door. Quietly. Andre was standing now, brows drawn. Who was that? Lisa. From the wedding? I nodded. Yeah, she's working at the bank, apparently. She saw my name on a log. Told Mom. His jaw clenched. You think your mom put her up to it? I don't think anything. I know it. He stepped closer. You're not safe here. I locked the check away. That's not the issue. No, he said. But you are. She's trying to paint you unstable. That's next level, Danny. I stared down at the door. At the cheap knob I used to trust. What if she does try something? What if she spins some story and makes it sound like I'm a danger to myself? Andre put a hand on my shoulder. Then we get ahead of it. We talk to a lawyer. I don't want to drag this into court. Then what? Let her gaslight you out of your own life? I didn't answer. Because that was the question I couldn't stop asking myself. I went to the kitchen and opened my journal. The postcard was still tucked inside the back cover. Now it felt radioactive. I flipped it over, ran my thumb along the handwriting again. Be careful who you trust. I thought I'd been. But she was always 2 steps ahead. A soft chime interrupted me. Andre's phone. He stepped away to take the call. I looked at the front door again. Then at my coffee mug, still half full from earlier. Cold now. Just like the pit in my stomach. Lisa's words echoed. She's saying you're unstable. I didn't cry. But something inside me curled tight and quiet. For the first time since winning that lottery, I realized something. It wasn't the money I needed to protect. It was the version of me that finally believed she could live a life her mother didn't script. And that version? She was on the edge of being erased. Andre drove. I watched the power lines blur past the passenger window, gripping the handle like I expected the road to split open beneath us. I hadn't been to a lawyer since my car accident 5 years ago. That time, Mom came with me. That time, she made sure my words sounded like hers. Not this time. We pulled into the lot of a modest 2-story building tucked between a vape shop and a nail salon. No mahogany panels or golden scales of justice, just a brass nameplate that read, Margot Leland, Estate and Civil Law. Inside, the waiting room smelled like cinnamon and printer toner. A legal pad sat on a glass coffee table, already covered in names. I scrawled mine at the bottom and tried to keep my hand from shaking. Margot called us in 15 minutes later. Mid-50s. Blunt bob, glasses on a chain, expression like she'd seen too many families burn over money. I liked her immediately. What can I do for you? She asked, clicking her pen. I glanced at Andre, then back at her. I need to protect a lottery check. But more than that, I need to protect myself. From my mother. Her pen paused. Go on. I laid it all out, finding the ticket, hiding it, the safety deposit box, and now, the whispers that I was unstable. That she might contest ownership, or worse, file something to challenge my competency. Margot didn't blink. She just wrote, nodding now and then. Do you have documentation of the purchase? Photo of the ticket? Receipt? I shook my head. Just the check now. The originals in the bank vault. And witnesses? Just me. And Andre. I never told anyone else. She set her pen down. That'll be enough to hold off most attacks, assuming no formal claim has been filed yet. But if she attempts to challenge mental competency, we'll need more. My stomach dropped. Like what? Records. Letters. Journals. Anything that shows a pattern, her undermining your autonomy. Emotional control. Isolation. It's not just about money, Danny. It's about showing a judge this isn't new behavior. That this is calculated. Andre leaned forward. What about a restraining order? Margot raised an eyebrow. Has there been physical harm? No, I said. Just surveillance and manipulation. Harder to prove. Not impossible, but we'd need solid evidence. That word again. Evidence. And suddenly, I saw it. Not in this office, but in my mind. The drawer in my old bedroom. Third one down. The notebook with the red elastic band. The one Mom never knew I kept. I remembered the way I used to write everything down: conversations, punishments, her threats masked as motherly concern. It was teenage therapy. Back then, it felt dramatic. Now, it might be my only lifeline. I need to go home, I said quietly. Margot looked up. I mean the house I grew up in. I left something there. Something that proves this didn't start with the lottery. Andre's hand brushed mine under the table. Are you sure? I nodded. If she wants to drag me into court, I'm bringing everything she taught me to fear. Margot gave a half smile. That's the spirit. But be careful. If she's really spinning this narrative, anything you do could be used to support it. I'll be careful. But my heart was pounding again. Because going back meant walking into her world, her walls, her version of me. And I wasn't sure which would haunt me more: what I'd find. Or what I'd remember. As we left the office, Andre pulled open the passenger door for me. A breeze stirred as I climbed in, lifting the corners of the papers Margot had handed me. One line from the intake form caught my eye. Primary risk: undermining of narrative control by family member. Narrative control. Funny how lawyers and abusers use the same language. As we pulled away, I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead. I was done being a story my mother wrote for me. Next stop, her house. And this time, I wasn't knocking. Under parked 2 blocks away. I didn't ask him to, I didn't have to. We both knew Carol would clock a black Jeep she didn't recognize from a mile away. I stepped out slowly, pulling my hoodie low and keeping my hands deep in my jacket pockets. The air smelled like spring fresh cut grass, wisteria, and mulch. My mother's hydrangeas were already trimmed and blooming, just like she liked them. The house looked the same. That was the problem. The porch swing still squeaked on windy days. The brass doorbell still had that tiny crack in the bottom right corner. The world had changed, but this house stayed frozen in the version of me she wanted to preserve. Obedient, apologetic, small. I crept around the side yard, keeping low, praying she'd gone to her Thursday church group like she used to. No car in the driveway. No motion from the curtains. So far, so lucky. The side gate was still rusted near the hinge. It gave the same reluctant groan it always had. I paused, listening. Nothing. Just the wind, and a bird or two arguing in the sycamore. Inside, the door to the garage was still unlocked. Some habits don't change, even in dictatorships. As soon as I stepped in, the smell hit me. Lemon polish. Bleach. And something underneath jasmine. Always Yasmin. It was the air freshener she used when she wanted things to smell clean, but not too clean. Controlled, but still feminine. Carol in a scent. I didn't waste time. Straight to my old room. The hallway carpet muffled my steps, but my heart was pounding hard enough I thought it might echo. When I opened the door to my childhood room, I actually had to brace myself. It wasn't just untouched, it was preserved. The lilac bedsheets were made tight as hospital corners. My old dance recital trophies lined the bookshelf, everyone dusted and turned to face forward. And on the dresser, me prom photo. Me and Darren Holloway. God. That smile wasn't mine even then. I could see it now. I moved fast, pulling open drawers. Top one empty except for a lint roller and a sealed hairbrush in its original packaging. Second, me old retainer case, some dried up glitter pens. Third, there. The red elastic notebook. Tucked behind a folder of piano sheet music. I snatched it up and flipped through to be sure. Pages and pages of memories, dated in the margins. Little moments. The 3rd of March, she said I looked fat in that top and made me wear the white blouse again. Einstein. The 9th of June, she said I'd get grounded if I brought up college out of state again. The 12th of August, she took the door off my room for privacy violations. It was all there. I clutched it to my chest and let out one small breath. Then I heard it. The floorboard creaked near the kitchen. I froze. The creak came again, closer this time. Either Carol was back early, or she never left. I grabbed the notebook, shoved it into my coat, and backed toward the window. My bedroom window had a tricky latch she used to lock it when she grounded me. I jiggled it once, twice. The 3rd time, it popped. I hoisted it up, wincing as it stuck halfway. I forced it open and swung one leg out. And then her voice. Danielle. I froze mid-climb. She was in the doorway. Not yelling. Not surprised. Calm. Too calm. You always come back here, she said, arms folded, even when you think you've changed. I didn't move. She took a step closer. Do you really think a notebook full of teen drama is going to save you? From yourself? I met her eyes. Number. But it might save me from you. I swung the other leg through the window and dropped into the mulch. As I sprinted through the yard, I didn't look back. But I heard the door slam behind me. A warning shot. Or maybe just her locking it forever. Either way, I had what I came for. And now? Now I had evidence. But more than that. I had a voice. One she couldn't erase anymore. The office was tucked inside a strip mall next to a dry cleaner and a payday loan shop. Nothing about it screamed justice. But when Margot recommended the investigator, she said, "She's not flashy, she's thorough." That's exactly what I needed. The woman who opened the door was in her late 50s, hair silver at the roots but dyed chestnut, with soft crow's feet that deepened when she smiled. Her name was June Keller, former social worker turned licensed private investigator. She didn't offer small talk, just motioned me in and said, "Let's get to work." Her office smelled like cinnamon gum and toner paper. I sat in the leather chair across from her desk, and she clicked on a small voice recorder, then opened a yellow legal pad already half filled with notes. "You brought the notebook?" I nodded and slid it across the table. She flipped it open with a practiced eye, scanning. "You dated everything. That's good, real good." I shifted in my seat. "Some of them are probably silly. Teenage stuff." June looked up, sharp. "Emotional abuse isn't silly. Patterns matter, language matters. And the earlier the pattern starts, the more it shows intent." My throat tightened. Intent. That word landed harder than I expected. Like Carol didn't just accidentally mess me up, she planned it. June pointed to a particular entry. "This one, the 12th of August, took my door off." "That ever happened more than once?" I swallowed. "3 times. That was the first." End quote. She circled it. "And this note, about the lottery, that she burned the check?" He hesitated. It felt wild to say out loud. Like it'd lose credibility the moment it hit the air. "She lit it on the stove." I tried to stop her, but she said it was better to lose the money than to let me throw my life away with a man like Andre. June didn't blink. She just reached over and pressed a button on the voice recorder. "Repeat that exactly. From the moment you walked in the kitchen." So I did. I spoke slowly, my hands in my lap, fingers twisting. I described the way Carol stood, her back turned, the check held like a matchstick. The way the flames curled, like she wasn't afraid. Like she wanted me to see what she was capable of. Halfway through, my voice cracked. June slid a box of tissues across the desk without interrupting. I hated that I still cried when I talked about my mother. But the tears weren't just grief anymore. They were grief mixed with anger. With memory. With clarity. When I finished, June clicked off the recorder. "We'll need a timeline," she said. "Every major incident you remember. Backed with whatever you've got, photos, texts, emails, even old report cards. Anything that shows a pattern of control." I don't have much. She didn't do things in writing. June gave a slow nod. "That's typical. But sometimes, abusers slip up." She pulled out a plastic evidence sleeve and slid in the page from my notebook with the 12th of August entry. "Did she ever leave voicemails, cards, anything in her handwriting?" I thought for a second. And then click, a memory unlocked. "There's a birthday card. From when I turned 21. She wrote this whole note about how I owed her for raising me alone, said I'd be nothing without her." June leaned forward. "You still have it?" "I think so. It might be in a box at Andre's place." "Find it. And anything else like that." Her voice wasn't urgent. Just firm. Like she'd said this 1,000 times before. I reached into my purse and pulled out the notebook again. It felt heavier now. Like it wasn't just money, it was evidence. A roadmap. As I stood to leave, June paused me. "One more thing," she said. She opened a drawer and handed me a simple spiral-bound journal. "Blank. Start fresh," she said. "Document everything from this moment on. Every conversation, every text. Anything she says or does. Memory fades, paper doesn't." I nodded. Outside, the sun had dipped behind a cloud, casting a gray wash over the parking lot. But I didn't feel cloudy. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt grounded. The kind of grounded that came with facts. With proof. With a plan. Still, as I got in the car, a flicker of doubt returned. What if it wasn't enough? What if she still found a way to spin it all, make me look ungrateful, unstable, unforgiving? I looked down at the blank journal in my lap and wrote one line across the first page. "She taught me silence." But now, I choose voice. Then I buckled my seatbelt and drove straight toward the next storm. Because this time, I was ready. The call came in just after midnight. Andre was asleep beside me, his back rising and falling in steady rhythm. The apartment was too quiet. I was staring at the ceiling, still too wound up from my meeting with June to fall asleep. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Mom. For a second, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to hit decline. Another part, the old part, still wanted to believe she might say something different this time. I answered, "Hey, Mom." Her voice was low, almost sweet. "Hi, honey. I didn't wake you, did I?" I sat up slowly. I was awake. A pause. Then she sighed, like she was carrying the weight of the world and wanted me to feel it too. "I heard you're talking to someone." My chest tightened. "Who told you that?" Another sigh. This one softer, more calculated. "You know Decatur's small. People talk. Margot always did have a big mouth." I clenched the phone tighter. My hand was starting to shake, but I kept my voice flat. "Yeah, I'm talking to someone. An investigator." There was silence on the line. Just the faint hum of her fridge, or maybe the AC vent in her kitchen. Then, "Is this really what we're doing now?" I didn't answer. "You know I only ever wanted what was best for you. Always, ever since your father left." "Don't," I said. "Don't drag that in again." Her tone shifted. Not angry wounded. "I sacrificed everything, Danielle. Everything. And now you're turning strangers against me? For what? Because I made one mistake?" One mistake. Like burning a $2.5 million check was the same as forgetting to pack a lunch. I looked over at Andre. Still asleep. Still the reason she hated me enough to do what she did. "Mom, it wasn't one mistake. It was a lifetime of control. Of cruelty dressed up as care." She scoffed. "Cruelty? Is that what you call raising a child on your own? Is that what you call protecting her from a man who—" "You don't know him," I snapped. "You never even tried." Silence again. Then, her voice dropped an octave. Lower. "I see. Well, I hope you're enjoying the circus you've created. But be careful, sweetheart. Sometimes, when you dig into the past, you uncover things that can't be put back." He blinked. "Is that a threat?" "No," she said calmly. "It's a mother's warning." I won. I swallowed hard. And then it hit me, the tone in her voice. That syrupy edge. It was the same tone she used when I was 9, and she told me if I tattled on her to the school counselor, the state would take me away. That I'd end up in some foster home, forgotten. She knew exactly how to lace love with fear. I stared at the phone in my hand, and the longer I stayed on the line, the more it started to feel like a noose. "Don't call again, Mom," I whispered. "Next time, talk to my lawyer." End of. Her breath caught. I could feel the shift of it across the phone. "You don't mean that." But I did. And I hung up. I sat there in the dark for a long time, staring at the phone. The screen had gone black again, but I could still feel the imprint of her voice in the air. I reached into the drawer beside the bed and pulled out the fresh journal June gave me. I flipped to a clean page and wrote down the entire conversation, word for word. Then, without even thinking, I drew a small star in the corner of the page. She used to do that. On my lunchbox notes in elementary school. "Love you, baby girl, be brave today." That star used to feel like comfort. Now it felt like a warning sign. I sat back against the headboard and let my body sink into the mattress. And just when I thought the worst was over, the phone buzzed again. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. "Be careful who you trust." No name. No emojis. Just those 5 words. I stared at it for a long moment before deleting it. I didn't need proof that Carol was playing dirty. I already knew. But I also knew this. The game had changed. She wasn't going to stop, and neither was I. Whatever storm she was about to send my way, I'd be ready. Because this time, I wasn't that little girl anymore. I was the woman who finally said no. I didn't go to sleep that night. I couldn't. That text, "Be careful who you trust," stayed burned into my vision, even after I deleted it. I kept hearing Carol's voice, soft and saccharine, wrapped in that same poison she always used. I knew she wasn't done. But I also knew something else now. She was scared. That morning, I drove to the old house. Not to see her. I wasn't ready for that. But her placer old home was the only link left between everything she'd hidden and everything I hadn't yet faced. She'd moved into a condo last year, downsizing, claiming it was too much to maintain. But the house was still in her name. The utilities still ran. And the garage, from what I remembered, still held boxes labeled in her tight cursive. Taxes 2008. Danny's college. Receipts don't toss. I pulled into the driveway slowly, like the tires might stir up old ghosts if I moved too fast. The porch light flickered, even in daylight. The front door still had the same brass handle I used to turn when I'd sneak in late from high school parties, praying she was asleep. The air smelled like dust and lemon cleaner like time had frozen, but someone was still trying to make it look alive. I went to the hall closet first. Behind winter coats and mothballs, I found what I came for. That little mahogany filing cabinet with the broken second drawer. The one Carol never let me open. My hands trembled as I tugged on the handle. It jammed just like always. I pulled harder, and finally, it gave way with a metallic groan. Inside, everything was still there. Neatly labeled manila folders. Some dates going back to the 90s. Her insurance papers. My birth certificate. And wedged between bank statements 2021 and Danny's car loan. A plain white envelope. Unlabeled. I opened it. Inside was a copy of the lottery check. The original amount. The date. My name in bold letters. And below itered ink. Void. I felt my breath hitch. Not from the check itself, but from the sticky note attached to it. In Carol's handwriting. Letting her cash this would have ruined everything. Better to lose money than lose her. My hands went cold. That wasn't a mother reacting out of panic. That was premeditated. She had the check in her hands. She voided it, photocopied it, then burned the real one. And she kept this copy like a trophy. I sat on the floor, that envelope limp in my lap. My whole life, she made me feel like I overreacted. Like I was too sensitive or too emotional. But this was proof. Not just of what she did, but of why she did it. She didn't destroy the check because of Andre. She did it because she couldn't stand the idea of me having something she didn't control. I looked around the hallway. At the wallpaper I helped her pick out in 8th grade. At the family photo still hanging crooked above the thermostat. Dad had been gone 2 weeks when we took it, but she made us smile like nothing had changed. That picture used to comfort me. Now it felt like a warning sign I'd ignored. I slipped the envelope into my purse and stood. My legs felt shaky, but my heart was steadier than it had been in weeks. Walking back toward the kitchen, I noticed something else, something small, but gut-punching. On the fridge was a photo of me and her at my college graduation. She'd printed it out, trimmed it into a perfect square, and stuck it up with a pink magnet. But over my shoulder, barely visible, was Andre. In the background, smiling. I remembered that day. She cropped him out of every version she printed. Except this one. And the magnet she used? A little plastic star. Just like the ones she put in my lunchbox when I was 7. I took that photo too. Not out of nostalgia. But because I finally saw the whole picture for what it was. Manipulation dressed as love. Obsession masquerading as protection. I walked out of that house without looking back. And when I got to the car, I didn't cry. I drove straight to June's office. No call. No appointment. Just showed up with the envelope, the photo, and the fire in my chest that said, "It's time. Time to press charges. Time to go public. Time to let this story breathe in the light, where her shadows can't twist it anymore." As I sat in June's waiting room, holding that envelope, I knew. The next move was mine. And this time, it wouldn't be quiet. June didn't say much when I laid the envelope on her desk. She didn't have to. The note alone, the one with Carol's handwriting, spoke louder than anything I could have told her. She read it, then looked at me the way people look at someone who's just come through a storm they shouldn't have survived. "You ready to press charges?" she asked. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hesitate when it came to my mother. "No," I said. "I'm ready to end this, but I want to do it my way." June nodded, and I knew she understood. Not everything had to go through a courtroom. Some justice didn't wear robes. It lived in the act of reclaiming your story. I didn't tell Andre what I found until that night. We sat on our apartment's tiny balcony, legs tucked up beneath us, the fall breeze carrying that sharp, smoky scent of a neighbor's fireplace. I handed him the envelope, watched his face go still as he read Carol's words. He didn't speak right away. Just set the envelope down on the table beside him and reached for my hand. "I'm sorry you had to carry that alone," he said softly. "I'm not," I said, surprising myself. "Not anymore. I think. I needed to see it. With my own eyes. That's the thing about the truth, it hurts like hell going in. But once it settles, it clears space." I didn't need an apology from her anymore. I didn't need her to understand what she did. Because I finally understood what it did to me. And what I wouldn't let it do anymore. The next morning, I returned to the house one last time. The keys were still in my purse. She hadn't changed the locks. I didn't go inside. I just stood on the porch, holding a matchbook and a metal tin. Inside were the things I'd carried for far too long. The copy of the check, the sticky note, a few photographs she'd cropped him out of. And a letter I wrote when I was 16 and never sent home, begging her to love me without condition. I struck a match and let it catch. One by one, I dropped each piece into the tin. Watched the paper curl, the ink blur, the smoke twist upward like it was taking the past with it. It didn't feel like vengeance. It felt like release. When it was done, I closed the tin, left it on the porch, and walked away. The door behind me creaked as the wind hit it, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to anymore. That evening, Andre and I sat on the floor of our living room, surrounded by open boxes. Not moving out, just clearing space. Making room for new things. He held up an old photo I'd found in a box labeled Danny's Junk. It was the two of us, the first year we met. My hair was shorter, his smile was a little uncertain, and we were standing in front of a hot dog cart after a Cubs game. She tried to erase that version of me. The one who was happy before her approval came into play. But here it was. Still alive, still smiling. "You want this framed?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah. Put it by the front door." "Bold choice," he teased. "It's the truth," I said. "And I'm done hiding it." I didn't see Carol again. Not after the letter I sent her, short, direct, and final. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even cruel. It just said, "I know what you did. I found the note. I found the copy. I've made peace with it, but I will not allow you back into my life. Please don't contact me again. I wish you healing, but not at my expense." She never responded. Maybe she didn't believe I'd walk away. Maybe she still doesn't. But that's no longer my burden. Weeks later, I stood in line at the DMV, updating my address and getting a new license photo. It felt silly, how nervous I was. But when they called my number, I stepped up to the counter with something I hadn't carried in years. Certainty. The woman asked if I wanted to keep the same name. I paused for half a second, then said, "Number, I'm changing it." "To what?" "My dad's last name." Not because I wanted to be someone else, but because I finally felt like me. Healing doesn't come in a flood. It comes in drips. One clear choice at a time. And the day I let go of the ashes and kept the fire inside me, that was the day I stopped being her daughter and started being my own person. Forever.